On Thursday, Reform UK overtook the Conservatives in an opinion poll for the first time, prompting Reform's leader Nigel Farage to declare, "We are now the opposition." The Conservatives are arguing that a vote for Reform may simply enlarge the size of a Labour victory. And whilst that may be true, nonetheless, Conservatives have apparently been switching to Reform since Nigel Farage retook the helm. The Conservatives and Reform together are polling almost as much as Labour, but with votes on the right split between two parties, the Labour majority could be crushing. Logically, the parties of the right need to consider whether, after defeat, they could come together. A poll by Survation, published today, puts the Tories ahead of Reform, but suggests that the Conservatives could be reduced to 72 seats, while Reform might get 7. That would give Reform only a small presence in the House of Commons, but it would put them inside our national political forum. Rejoining me now to discuss this are Madeline Grant, Sam Fowles and Stephen Pound. Stephen Pound, I'm going to begin with a rather deflating question. Are we kidding ourselves? If there's a huge Labour majority, there will be no interest in what's going on the right at all.
Well, I think there will be, because always you've got to look to the future. And also there's a fascinating scenario emerging here. If these figures are remotely correct, you could end up with a group of shell-shocked, battered and bruised and wounded Tories getting back into the opposition benches. And there is this charismatic figure of Nigel Farage putting his cigarette out in the members' lobby and strolling in. And so do you not think that they might coalesce around him? But I think the issue there is of the realignment of the right. Firstly, you cannot take Farageism out of Reform. The problem with having a very, very charismatic, and I'm happy to accept that, leader, is that without that person, what have they got? I found a lot of Reform voters when I've been canvassing around the constituencies recently, but when you ask them what is Reform for, they say it's not them.
Yes.
And so the idea is that if Reform is just taking votes from the Tories, I'd be delighted, but it's not. It's taking votes from Labour as well. So the key thing is, will there be, and Madeline early on talked about 1993 in Canada, when the Conservatives were reduced to 2 seats. I mean, far too many in my opinion, but they were reduced to 2. So would there be that sort of realignment? I think it's possible, but unlikely.
Madeline, if these figures, 72 seats, were anything like true, what would happen is that there would be very few leadership contenders in the Conservative Party, but the charismatic figures, fairly charismatic figures, tend to be on the right. However, the membership of the Conservative Party inside the House of Commons would probably have shifted to the centre, because a lot of their right-wingers were in red wall seats, which they're going to lose.
Yes.
So, first of all, before we get on to the next stage, do you think that a centrist Conservative Party in the House of Commons is likely to elect one of the right-wing candidates?
God, it's so hard to say. I mean, I think that the way it will go is that you will have, actually, from what I can tell, that the people who do appear to be safe, no matter what, if indeed there is such a thing as a safe seat anymore, seem to be, there are a few of the right-wingers who would no doubt attract a lot of the attention, but there are also lots more of the kind of one nation types. It's very hard to see. Let's say it was someone like, God help us, let's say of Suella Braverman. She was obviously is someone that would do business with Farage, but let's say the rump of the Tory party has more of the Tom Toogan hats. It's impossible to see how they could form some kind of an accommodation, and that would put them at odds with their members. And then I suppose in future electoral cycles, the members might be trying to then get in more of the right-wing candidates.
Is there an example of a charismatic One Nation member?
Well, I think Tom Toogan he can deliver an excellent speech. He has, conservative principles. I mean, I think that you do need to have a mixture of different types of Tories within the Conservative Party for it to be a success, if you're going to get attract support across the country. I spend a lot more time than most watching the quality of debate in the House of Commons, and it's really depressing to me how few people there are that can deliver a competent speech without constant recourse to notes and corporate away day speech. I just find it deeply uninspiring half the time. Yes.
Sam, what feelings are provoked in you by this discussion?
Actually managed to disagree with both Madeline and Stephen at the same time.
Excellent.
And say, I think Farage is overrated. This guy has been around for 20 years. He's got massive funds behind him. He's had massive amounts of attention. He's had his own TV show. And he's only on 18%. I mean, come on. Where's the rest of it? I think if you put Caroline Lucas and given her the same advantages over the last 20 years that Nigel Farage has had, she'd be Prime Minister by now. So I think when we say, is Farage going to take over the right, that would be a huge tactical blunder for the Conservative Party.
I was wondering, Sam, whether, how Farage would perform in the House of Commons. And Stephen could already envisage him there. He could already see how he would enter the chamber from the members' lobby and so on. He's already got that vision in his mind. Parliament is a testing place, and it's different from all other places. On the other hand, Farage was, of course, in the European Parliament, where actually I thought he performed rather well. Basically what he did was he ranted against, the bulk of the members, because the bulk of the members obviously were in favour of the European Union, and he was against it. And so actually he has cut his teeth in a parliament.
Well, look, he's very good at attention-seeking. That's probably his unique talent. But actually, in the European Parliament, it was a running joke about how bad he was, actually, as a constituency MP. He missed more committee meetings
he was there to abolish the whole thing.
Than he actually attended.
He was there to abolish it.
He's representing people, so he took people's votes.
Yeah, people who wanted to get out of the EU.
He took people's votes and said, I'm actually not going to bother to represent your interests. I'm just going to have my little strop when the camera is in front of me to get some more attention. And I think you see that in this campaign, that as soon as he's asked difficult questions, again, he goes to aggression, he goes to having a little, getting angry and just laughing and shouting boring.
I've seen him much less angry in this campaign than before. I've seen him quite sort of smiley. Stephen, let me just pursue this with you a moment longer. As I say, you could envisage him in the House of Commons.
Yes.
Do you think he would perform well there? Do you think the Tories would be saying, as they sat on their tiny back benches, would they be saying, oh my goodness, this is the man we really need?
Well, I think that the comparator is George Galloway. Galloway came into the House of Commons as a one-trick pony, as a single person, but with extraordinary oratorical skills.
Yes.
And it gives me no pleasure whatsoever to say that.
But it's true.
But he ended up being the voice crying in the wilderness. He was on his own. Farage is slightly different. Farage is actually, he's as we rightly say, he was in the European Parliament. And to judge him by the standards of Pericles, I think it's a little bit unfair. Because, in all honesty, he was there to destroy the temple, not to rebuild it. But I think that we slightly do exaggerating. But the point is, Farageism isn't purely about Farage. It is about this rage against the machine. It's this inchoate howl of fury. And it affects so many people. I honestly think that there could be coalescence around him. But the thing about the Conservatives is they have a remarkable ability to change shape. I mean, if you look at the Baldwin Conservatives, you look at the Butler Conservatives, you look at the Thatcher Conservatives, Cameron, totally different. So they are shapeshifters supreme, and that's why they're the most successful political party in Europe. So I think they will shift. But the key question here is, will a right-wing Conservative constituency membership have any relationship with reality when it comes to electing a future leader? Because Penny Mordaunt will be gone, Jeremy Hunt will probably be gone. So we don't know who it is.
Yeah.
And I think that one of the first things that the new Conservative leader will do is to actually change the electoral process, just as the Labour Party changed its internal process pretty damn quickly, so that in future the leader of the Conservative Party will be elected by the Conservative MPs.